Have you ever looked back on a season of your life and finally understood why things happened the way that they did? I was talking with a friend about the season that I'm in, and I shared that I've been praying and seeking God, but I felt like I couldn't hear his voice. I felt like he was quiet. And my friend reminded me a few months ago, I was praying for God to move in a situation that felt impossible. And my current season is actually an answer to that prayer. The season that I'm standing in today may not look the way that I expected the answer to look, but it's evidence that God brought me out of a place that I once prayed to leave. So that conversation reminded me that just because life is still hard doesn't mean that God isn't answering prayers. And sometimes we're so focused on the discomfort of our current season that we miss the fact that we're standing in something that we once prayed for. So lately, I've been rereading Joseph's story. So Joseph's story begins in Genesis 37 when God gave him a dream. Joseph sees a future that points to leadership and influence, and he shares this dream with his brothers, and they don't receive it well at all. His brothers sold him into slavery. Then came years of faithful service in Potiphar's house. Then came false accusations. Then came prison. And so Genesis 39:21 tells us that the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. And I love that verse because it reminds us that God's presence isn't dependent on our circumstances. God was with Joseph in the palace. God was with Joseph when he was in slavery. God was with Joseph while he was in prison. And this assignment that Joseph had on his life didn't disappear because his circumstances got difficult. So years later, after Joseph was elevated in a position of leadership, and the same brothers who sold him into slavery, when they arrived in Egypt, they found themselves standing before Joseph. The dream that God had shown Joseph years earlier had came to pass. And what strikes me is what Joseph said in the midst of that moment. He said, "It was God's plan for me to come here. I am here to save people's lives." Now he understood the purpose behind that dream. He understood why God allowed the journey to unfold the way it did. He understood that God had been positioning him all along. It was about God placing Joseph exactly where he needed to be so that others could live. That understanding came after the journey. It came after he experienced everything that he did. And maybe that's the lesson for us, that there are seasons of our lives that don't always make sense while we're living in them, seasons where we question why things happen the way that they do. But Joseph's story reminds us that understanding often comes later, and at some point God may reveal why your journey looked the way that it did. You may realize that what felt like a setback was actually preparation, that what felt like a detour was actually direction, and that what felt like a closed door was actually God's protection. You may not understand every chapter of your story right now, but God sees the whole story. He sees the full picture. He sees the bigger picture. He sees the purpose that is attached to your journey, and he will be with you every step of the way. So make sure that you keep trusting him, keep trusting the process, keep trusting the journey, keep growing, stay faithful, and keep shining bright. I will see you next week.